Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. For this week we will be painting this hummingbird in watercolour using a looser style technique. I'm Campbell and my channel is all about boosting your confidence as a watercolourist, particularly so if you're new to painting. If you're starting out, it can be difficult to know what style of watercolour application suits you best. So let's make a start on this painting, but before we dive in, if you're new here, do consider subscribing below and hitting that bell notification so that you don't miss any future videos coming up every Tuesday. So without any further ado, let's get started. I always start my paintings with a really simple line drawing, as you can see here. And if you'd like to know how I do my drawings, I will put an information card on the top of the screen as usual right now. We're going to be working wet on wet, which means that we'll be applying just plain water over the bird and then dropping in the pigments, which I will explain in a moment. The paper that I'm using today is made by Arches and it's a cold press or knot surface, which means that it's slightly textured. The paints I'm using are Daniel Smith and Winsor and Newton. We have Peacock Green, Peacock Blue by Daniel Smith, Winsor Green Yellow Shade, and Paynes Grey with a little bit of burnt sienna mixed in. I will put all the colours in the description box below to go with this tutorial. I also have my number 3 size spotter brush from Rosemary Co and some kitchen roll to pat dry. So let's begin by applying some plain water over the body of the bird. I'm applying the water onto this part of the wing here because this is also a bluey tone, and maybe a little bit here. The great thing about working wet on wet is that you can see where you're going to be dropping in the paint before you apply the paint. So if you feel that you're a little nervous about painting, you're just applying water. You can't really make a mistake with it. And I'm going to leave maybe the end part of the bird here a little bit lighter. So I'm beginning with a blue tone, and we can mix and match these, but we'll just drop them in. Okay, and just let that settle. And then I'm just cleaning my brush and going for some of the other. And we can just let this do its thing. This is the joyous thing about wet and wet. It's really loose and really easy to apply. And then again, go into my green tone here and just popping this in. And just have a little think about where you're applying your different tones. As it settles, you can clean your brush, pat it on your kitchen towel like this, and start to move it around like this. So we can let that settle in a little bit. Whilst it's drying, you may want to take the opportunity to pull any colours around, like this, for example, around the eye, just gently. I'm going to pick up some more blue, just there. Now you can see how this paint is settling into the paper really nicely. It's gone a little dry where I've dropped the water in, so I'm just going to apply a little bit more and then add some more green and some blue like this. And then carefully, this is wet on dry because we want it to be more controlled on these little spiky bits here. And then just blend that into the wet paint. Wet and wet is a beautiful way of merging your colours together. And you can mix and match, pick up another colour, pick up the green, mix it between the green and the blue, whichever you want to do. And we'll let that settle in a moment. Whilst that's drying, we can now switch our attention to the outer part of the wing here. Again, just applying plain water for the base of the wing. So just really smooth application. And we are going to be doing some negative painting. Negative painting is when you paint around a shape to form a different shape. It isn't actually a difficult process. You're just drawing around a shape. I think your brain tells you one thing and your eye tells you another. So I've applied that colour, and now we're going to just drop in the Paynes Grey mix here. And it will just easily move over these little bits of water that you've applied. Don't be too precious about brushes, as long as you have one that's reasonably good for controlling your paint. The reason I like spotters is because I find using them really, really easy. And we're going to let that settle in before we start building up the colour. Focusing on the top bit while we're waiting for this to dry, and to these flower heads and stems I'm applying water as before, and I have on my palette mixed two colours, magenta being the pink tone, and the greeny tone is quite simply olive green. Olive green first, drop the olive green and the pink onto the pink tone like this. Don't worry if they merge together, this is a looser style, remember, so it's meant to look a little bit more relaxed. Painting should be relaxing. Some of the tutorials that I've done throughout these YouTube videos have been done on everyday mixed media paper, and you don't need the best quality, so please don't think I'm doing this on a high quality paper with pro artist things and that's why it's really okay, but it isn't. You can use whichever paper you have, it doesn't matter, especially if you're practicing, or even if you're not, you don't necessarily need to go out and buy it. Just thought I mentioned that. While we're waiting for the flowers to dry, we can go back to the bird. I'm going to add a little bit more Paynes grey onto my palette. Use the Paynes grey to start building some form. So again, going to drop some water on, all wet on wet and all very relaxed. And we're going to do this as a line and wash as well. Apply your water as before over the existing wash, and then go really bold with your drop-ins. We know where we're going with the colour now, so we can really pop that in like so. Go to the other blue colour, add that here and there, where you feel you want to, and I'm going to do this in time lapse. So we have to let this dry before we can do anything else. Now you can see how the paint is still kind of moving around, and you can also see the beginnings here of negative painting where I've painted around this little feather here to create this shape. Still needs quite a bit of work, but before we do anything else, and whilst we're waiting for this part to dry here, we can go back up to the flower at the top. I'm going to pick up the magenta tone again. Use any colour that you want to for these. This is Quinacridone magenta, but use what you want to. So we can drop that in. Just really loose, okay? This is all about applying the paint and having fun. Maybe just apply some on the bottom. I'm also going to put a little bit more water on the top here. What I'd like to happen is exactly what's happened here, is the pink paint mixes in a little bit with the green paint. So if you do like this kind of looser style of painting, then keep practicing it. You still have to control your paint. You still have to apply it and sort of think about where you're putting it. But it's about having that sort of less controlled element of painting. We can start to drop this in. I really like that look there. And then just a little more magenta here to accentuate. Like this. You can use the tip of a brush just to get on the outside edge. I want to keep some of it lighter. It's important that you retain some of the lightness to give form. Even wet on wet and loose style, you still need to have the element of shape and dimension. If you don't have tonal values, then obviously your painting will look flat. So by keeping some of these areas lighter, then it's obviously going to give it more form. One of the things I like about the colours in this painting is they are so vibrant and bold. By again, negative painting around a shape to give it a shape, I think looks absolutely beautiful. So I'm just going to blend that in by patting my brush on the kitchen towel and then just blending it through. You can see even when the paint is dry, you have the opportunity to blend it and mix it around like this. Even when it's dry, you can merge those colours together. Olive green here, a tiny bit of that colour there, and we can blend that in like this. And if you want to just add a little bit of contrast, just drop in a little bit of grey. So let's go back to this little bird. Wings of the bird are looking a little bit bare, so we need to go in with Paynes grey to start thinking about our negative shapes. Don't be frightened of negative painting. It really isn't that bad. So we need to just mix up a little bit of the Paynes grey. I'm going to just put a little bit of green with it just to take out that bluiness of it. So it's quite a watery mix again. And what we need to do, I've already done the lines here that you can see. So I'm going to go in between these lines to create shape, just like this. So all we do is we look at where these spiky feathers are here and we just paint like this. I'll do one or two of them for you and then I'll speed it up. So this will need to be darkened. So like this, pick up your pigment and then go around the next one, but leave a gap. So we're leaving this little gap here. So leave the gap. And again, because it's quite a loose style, we don't want to be too picky with it. Just go and leave a gap. And I'm going to continue the process in time lapse. So you saw me there in time lapse just adding a few details here and there, and you can see it still kind of has that lovely loose blurred effect. I'm going to just add a little bit of water to these colours here, and where we see the tail feathers at the bottom, I'm just going to accentuate these again by negatively painting around them like this. Maybe just add a little bit of Paynes grey. Use your imagination. I mean, if you feel that you need a bit more grey, add a bit more grey. You see how I've created that little shape there, and also we can maybe do one or two others like this here and there. Probably all I need to do. I've gone around the eye a little bit with some of the mix that I already had, and I'm just using the Paynes grey mix on the beak a little bit. I'm going to leave around that area white or pale, and you'll see why in a moment. So for now, I'm just going to let this dry, and then we can start to think about having some fun with a pen. So now we can start to think about the line and ink part of this painting, because it's lovely and loose. We need to just give it a little bit of shape. So I'm using the pen that I always use for my line, and that's the Pilot drawing pen, and this is a size 01. And if you are going to do this element of it, then use whatever drawing pen that you have. I'm just going to start with the flowers. I'm just going to show you what I'm doing. I'm just going to literally outline the painting like this. I'm going to continue the process in time lapse, but before I do, I'm just going to mention the eye here. But when you hit the eye, there's a little highlight in the middle that you need to work around. So always go bigger, and we'll do it in time lapse. All the lines that I've painted in, I've accentuated with this fine liner pen. So for now, back over to me. So thank you for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. Remember, watercolor painting is all about enjoyment and having fun. And if you did enjoy this video, you may want to try this video here where I show you how to paint a leaf in watercolor using a slightly different technique. If you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up. It's a way of letting YouTube know that you like me. Thank you for watching, and until next time.